Today, many banks are torpedoing small businesses. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, one of those posts covering finance and property news. Today, I want to share with you another section of the evidence from the Senate hearings last week that related to the question of bank branch closures. And the discussion in this one relates specifically to small businesses via the Small Business Ombudsman. And it was pretty astonishing testimony, and once again underscores what I've been saying for some time, that the banking system is not fit for purpose at the moment. Specifically, of course, small businesses out in regional areas have nowhere to turn to. So, worth listening to, and again, further evidence, I think, which really underscores we need significant change.
It's fantastic to welcome back the country's best ever small business minister to the Parliament. Good to see you, Mr Bilson, and welcome to others as well. I understand the information on parliamentary privilege and protection of witnesses giving evidence to Senate committees has been provided to you. For the record, could you please state your names and the capacity in which you appear?
Thank you, Senator, and good afternoon. Bruce Bilson, Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman.
Right.
Hi, I'm Matthew Steen. I'm the Executive Director, Policy and Advocacy at the SBFO.
And Dr Craig Latham, I'm the General Counsel with the Ombudsman.
Thank you very much. We have your submission. Would you like to make a brief opening statement, given the time?
A short one, as
That'd be fantastic.
my height
Thank
means
you.
all that I can do. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senators. Some 30% of small and family businesses are based in regional Australia. They rely on having close and trusted relationships with their bank, but when the bank leaves town, it can have a detrimental effect on those businesses and the business environment more generally. Banking is an essential service and important to the vitality of regions and for fostering commercial relationships, creating regional jobs, local livability and prosperity. Time-poor small businesses rely on knowing their bank is a reliable partner. So when the bank closes or the ATM is removed, small business banking relationships are lost or severely impaired. Access to cash and deposits are diminished. Bank customers must commute to other centres for service or to engage with often metropolitan-based bankers who may not understand the regional small business customers' investment potential, operational environment or business challenges. So much for being reliable. Senators, this challenge of maintaining access to an in-person financial services in regional Australia has been an ongoing challenge for a quarter of a century. We've seen banks make pledges to past parliamentary committees to not close any bank branches in regional areas, but sadly these pledges have not lasted the test of time. Since 2017 there's been a reduction of branches throughout Australia of 1/3, and over the same period ATMs have been reduced by almost 2/3. Over the last 2 years alone, Senators, the regions have lost 218 branches and 566 ATMs. We acknowledge that not all banks are withdrawing in-person banking services. Several customer-owned banks are opening new branches in regional communities, including in locations where larger banks have left. And it's often suggested that post offices can fill the void, but they often don't offer the full range of services a small family or farming business needs, and the fees and charges may be higher, if not now into the future, for the same service provided by the bank. And if a small family or farming business bank customer is already paying for their business accounts, why should they pay again? And what's to stop the same issue occurring with the growing pressure on post offices to also close? The Australian Banking Association is updating the bank closure protocol, but we find it's laughable in a sense that it implies a degree of consultation, and it's simply not. It's a notification after a decision has been made. There's no opportunity for a community to really influence the decision or perhaps shift their business to the last bank in town to encourage it to stay. Think of the local council might move its business if it knew something was going to change. There's no scope for behavioural change to try and convince the bank to stay and bring the business that's in that community to that outlet. Really, the bank is doing nothing more than a driver putting on an indicator light to change lanes after it's already moved. It's insulting to the small and family business customers. This is a commentary on a closure, not an opportunity to consult. There should be individualised support for small business customers, a genuine opportunity for stakeholders to influence the bank closure impact assessment process and conclusions, Adequacy and durability of the proposed alternative access arrangements. What's going to be in their place? Are they fit for purpose? Are they durable? A deeper consideration of what local actually means in a non-urban context, and the need to maintain local market expertise to support the full suite of small, family and farming business banking requirements. Where a bank's decided to close a branch, it should be required to support the retention and convenient availability of small business and family and agricultural business bankers with local and market knowledge in that community, so that existing banking relationships and small businesses seeking finance are supported and given fair treatment. Let's not forget, it's the banks that's removing the point of contact, and an aspect of servicing that businesses were relying upon, not the customer choosing to change something about its relationship, which the bank then may ultimately have to pay for. We've heard examples of banks refusing to lend to customers in regional areas where there is minimal or no other recently approved loans and no particular insight into that regional condition. It's one thing to herald and applaud small business as the engine room of the economy. I see the banks actively competing for small and family and farming business customers in metropolitan and in some regional areas by claiming it knows small business customers, that it knows them, the challenges faced and what they need. And many are saying they want the branch service to stay. So why do we put a heavier load on the engine when it comes to the regions? Happy to take your questions.
Look, well, thank you, Mr Bilson. That's some excellent commentary there. I reckon some of that will end up in our final report. They're very, very useful quotes there from yourself and a good summary, particularly the corruption of the word consultation. We've come across that quite a lot, real-world examples of it. Can I ask, do you have a role right now at all in regards to the banking code? Can you take complaints about it or do anything in regards to compliance with it?
We have three aspects. One, it may be the matter of a complaint, right. And then we work very closely with AFCO. You'd be aware under the legislation I operate under, if there's a near, neater, correct enabler of support, we are obliged to refer it. We also don't need too much of an invitation to lean in where we see harm being caused to small family and farming businesses, so we're quite active in engaging. We actually engage with the ABA on this closure protocol. We put forward a range of ideas for improvement. That was also a consultation process. But I must say, you get a sense that these things are presented already etched in a tablet of stone.
So you don't think the ABA listened to, or is listening to
your advice? They were receptive and they gave us a response, and I don't for a minute doubt the difficulty the ABA has to take all of its members with them. Yep. But you end up with the lowest common denominator. Now, this protocol or any code should be the floor, not the ambition. And we should guide the banks on what better looks like and encourage those banks prepared to pursue that objective and reward them with our custom. So we have that. And then the last point is my colleague, Dr Steen, is also our representative on the Banking Code Compliance Committee, Small Business and Agricultural Subcommittee. So we're very involved and have regular engagements with the banking sector.
Obviously, you only, I suppose, are established to deal with a subset of complaints, for example, vulnerable customers or elderly Australians. It's not really your remit there, but you're focused on.
Well, and sadly, too often, though, they are small and family businesses, and they're difficult conversations. And they're conversations where our community wants to have a face-to-face chat with the bank manager. They need to talk about hardship provisions. They need to understand what options they have available to them. Even just yesterday I was in Sydney talking to an accountant from Port Augusta, explaining to me about, the fertiliser $60,000 bill was the largest single transaction they have. Well, it got intercepted by the invoice substitution scam, and they've lost that money. And they wanted to talk to the bank about that, and who do they talk with? So these are the sort of things that business needs banking services to help with. Certain safeguards people are taking about lower electronic transaction values to guard against the threat of scams and cyber fraud means they may need to go to a branch to execute a transaction above 10 grand, for instance, if they've decided that's going to be the limit of their transactions to minimise their risk. How do they do that? And then, another example recently was a cafe in eastern Melbourne where I was hearing about how difficult it is to get a new staff member on as a signatory for the business's accounts. Again, you need to do that in person. And so the functioning of enterprise, of commerce and trade relies upon a banking service and accessibility that's reasonable and relatively comprehensive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just in terms of your point about the lowest common denominator, and I suppose that's a consequence of it being a voluntary code, do you think there's scope for us to look at making it mandatory then and establishing what we think are the best standards and requiring banks to uphold?
I think there's certainly scope for that. I mean, even folding the protocol, but one that is about genuine consultation, so that there's an indication that this is being contemplated. And then the local community, the council, the water authorities, the businesses in that area can make a judgment about whether they want to take action to see a business banking branch stay in their community and reward it with their business. There's no scope to have that adjustment. This is like the decree, decision made, and we'll tell some folks about it. And in some cases, we won't tell anyone about it in advance for a range of reasons captured in the protocol. If we had something that was more engaging, more consultative, more about what's going to replace it and how durable and adequate is that, and a bit of give and take, and then maybe factored that into the banking code so that AFCA or someone like that could have a look at it if someone's gaming those processes. I think that's a reasonable proposition.
You raised an issue for a suburban business, and this is focused on regional issues, but if we have time next year, I'm hoping to go to a suburban area. I've had a number of colleagues raise a lack of, or the closure of banks being an issue there. Are you seeing that yourself a bit then among suburban businesses as branches close there?
Less so, but it's more about the scope of services.
Right.
See, there's a bank branch and there's a bank branch.
Yeah.
You know, some bank branches have business bankers there. They have a capacity to get change, to bring cash, to be able to fully interact, to talk to someone about, equipment financing proposition or some other form of origination about cash flow challenges that they may be facing, or even a difficult discussion around hardship. As a result of a natural disaster or some other event. That's capital B branch with all of that capability and all the things a small family and farming business looks for. Then there's others that have got narrower spreads of hours, limited scope in terms of the expertise that's available, and that's something else again.
And even if the branch might not be too far away within a city, the time loss could still be significant in
that's
a
right.
major city for a small business.
And the example I provided about that new signatory was actually in eastern suburbs of Melbourne, where that business owner was going really troubled by what should be a simple process of onboarding a new staff member and then enabling access to their banking, and that became quite an ordeal for them.
Now, I have some more questions on your submission, but I will hand over to other senators first. Senator Roberts, did you want to...
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr Bilson and Mr Steen and Mr Latham for being here. You mentioned, Mr Bilson, that 30% of small businesses are in the regions. In the regions, what percent of businesses are small businesses?
Good question. Can I come back to you on that?
I think it would be... Yes, I would appreciate it, but...
It's probably not a very sophisticated answer, but stacks comes to mind. But I'll get the data analysed and come back to you on that, if I may, Senator.
That would seem to be my view as well. Now, the licensed post offices, they're small businesses.
Yes, they are.
Should the post offices provide more financial services? They've got the biggest retail business network in the country. They're trusted. They're keen. They've got relationships with the people in the community. Should they be given more services?
Well, in many regions, they're our best chance. They are, in some cases, the last multi-dimensional business standing. I know some, and it was touched on earlier, the range of services that Australia Post enables, but they often sit adjacent to the last pharmacy, and the pharmacist is running the LPO. The parcel business has some capital impacts on their footprint and on floor sizes, and even there where delicate conversations are had, some of them are too small to have a private spot to actually have a chat with somebody. I know some years ago when there was issues around Centrelink offices and their availability, Centrelink was doing some of this work. There was, sort of private cubicles where people could get specialist expertise beamed in with some degree of dignity and accessibility. That's really difficult in many of the LPOs I've visited, but that may well be part of the kind of remedies that you might consider, Senator.
Have you listened into some of the previous sessions today?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Did you, all of them by the sound of it, did you listen into the Citizens Party session about the People's Bank?
No, I didn't. I missed that one. I just flew back from Sydney, sir. Sorry about that.
It's a proven concept. The Commonwealth Bank, the original Commonwealth Bank, not today's Commonwealth Bank, was formed in 1911 by the Fisher Labor government. I noticed your point about bank closures are commentary, not consultation. With the relationship with the People's Bank, and the LPAs as part of that or connected with that, is that something that would enable more consultation and more joint services?
It's hard to know. I've seen, you'd be aware, I've looked at banking for small business access and a range of models around the world, and some publicly owned institutions perform well and behave well and others don't. It's a difficult one to foreshadow how they'd actually operate in reality. I guess the question, and I'm probably straying a little bit out of my lane here, if I could suggest that, is it a failure of the market in banking per se, or is it a behaviour issue around the banks that are there that would probably be an influence on my thinking with that kind of idea?
Well, given your experience, you would know that the big four banks dominate the market, control the market. They're a law unto themselves at times. The original Commonwealth Bank brought accountability to banking and competition, and that pressure was vital in keeping the big banks at the time to be more competitive.
May I take that as a comment, Senator?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
So, what about, did you listen to the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the COSBOA sessions?
I got a summary of what was spoken about.
Anything grab you?
Oh, a very similar message to some of the points we've been raising. I think my colleagues were attentive to that. Anything come out of that may have been of great interest? No,
we're consistent, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Consistent with what the points we would make, Senator.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Senator Roberts. Senator Rennick.
Mr Wilson, how are you?
Hello, Senator. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, likewise. So, just in regards to your opening statement, you're basically saying that you think it's better to have proper banks rather than try and operate out of the post office.
I think that's a better preference.
Yeah, I share the same view.
There's a degree of and I should disclose, when I left Parliament, I did help build a bank with Judo Bank, so I'm not unfamiliar with the challenges that are faced. But it also reminds me of the spread of services and the nature of the engagement between small family and farming businesses and a bank.
Yeah.
So there's expertise, there's pathfinding. I'd like to think financial providers like banks would be the best ally a business could have. And at times that might be about guiding resources or just wise counsel in addition to banking services. So I think that's preferable. But if that's not durable, I think the options that are being considered, such as the Australia Post option, should be tested in terms of whether they're fit for purpose to replace the banks that are being lost. What is the durability of the service offering? Is it adequate? Is it comprehensive? Is there appropriate access to specialists, banking specialists, to help those businesses deal with business-related concerns? I mean, that would be the sorts of things I think you could tease out through a more genuine bank closure consultation protocol, and then invite the customers to say, does this work for you?
Yeah. Okay, so your predecessor in 2017, Kate Carnell, called for a government-backed bank to lend to small business. Would you prefer a enforceable banking code of conduct on existing banks, or do you think it's possible to say, start up a public bank that provides the full range?
That report spoke about the availability of finance.
Yeah.
It was around, finance being the oxygen of enterprise, and how hard it is for too many small and family and farming businesses to get the finance they need. So that report was about broader access to finance questions. Okay. Here, I think the banks have got a lot of, as Senator Roberts characterised, a lot of power. They've got a privileged position in the economy with the taxpayer protections that accompany an ADI licence. I've been through the process of securing one of those and know how arduous it is, but also know of the benefits that come with it. So I don't think it's too much to ask to make sure, if they are physically planning to vacate a community that they invited to join them because they were going to service them, if they're now no longer going to do that, I think it's fair to ask for a more mapped out plan about what's going to replace that service offering they were undertaking to provide their customers and now won't. So, I mean, that's how I would commend as an idea. Perhaps my colleagues might want to add something to that.
Well, Senator, I think just the other thing we would reiterate, particularly with the connection to the Banking Code Compliance Committee, is that point the Ombudsman initially made about codes should really be above compliance. They should be high standards for everyone in the industry to aspire to and be the best practice. And I'm sure the committee's heard before that we're similarly concerned with the gaps in the protocol. It should be enforceable under the Banking Code. It should apply. It doesn't apply to channels that don't fit the definition of a branch. It's up to the bank to reasonably determine who an affected customer is. If an alternative offering is provided, that can be ceased once the bank branch is closed later on. So all those things need to be addressed in a stronger enforceable code.
And the Banking Code has AFCA oversight, and the code represents part of the contract between the customer and the bank. And if a customer feels aggrieved about that relationship, they can go to AFCA in most circumstances. Here, this sits outside that discipline. So it's an undertaking of good intention, and we think there's some scope, given that we think there should be time to adjust. Yeah, if the community wants the branch, let them bring their business to the one that wants to service them. And at the moment, under this method, the last year, you might not even know it's happening until the sign goes up on the door.
No, that's what has
There's
happened.
no behavioural change scope there, and sorry.
All good. Thank you. Yeah, that's the last question.
Okay. Thanks, Senator Rennick. I've just got a couple of extras. Although, Senator Colbeck, did you have questions? No, I think you said you didn't, but if you do, just pipe up. Just quickly, reference to your submission, you mentioned the sort of fees paid to post offices. It sounds like you don't think they're adequate or should be boosted.
The LPOs are doing important work, but I think, as Senator Roberts alluded to, many are quite under financial distress themselves. And this is why you often see them doing other things, a pharmacy with the LPO, the LPO doing other services, even being part of the visitor economy in the region, those sorts of things. So that is challenging. I guess we were alluding to the durability too. It's one thing about the revenue stream for an LPO providing that service. My concern would be if you're a business that are paying banking fees to your bank for services, and then someone wants you to pay again. That's a bit of a concern.
Do you think the cost should be covered by the banks effectively that are getting a service from them? Yep, that makes sense. And look, the other thing you mentioned that intrigued me was if a branch leaves, there should be bankers left to deal with small business, agribusiness. I mean, how do you envisage that working? Presumably there's no branch, so they're working from home, some such, and travelling around, meeting clients, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and we see that a little bit now. Right. Some of the more small business-focused banks do have folks in the field, if I can use that phrase.
Yep.
If this happens, part of the durable replacement maintenance of services should be a continuation of that availability. Now, that doesn't have to always happen in a physical branch. Many businesses would rather a banker come to their business and learn more about the business and understand that. So there's ways of meeting that. We're just saying that relationship's very important between a small family and farming business. And so, Dr. Latham.
If I can just follow on that as well, because some of the secondary effects of this, as the major banks and others pull out, we've talked about AFCA a fair bit here, and so when small businesses are forced into dealing with, say, third-tier lenders, often not members of AFCA, not covered by AFCA, so that's one of the sources of our dispute resolution that we deal with.
They come to us outside that AFCA arrangement.
Very difficult to resolve, and some of the interests and penalties are very significant compared to sort of the large majors.
So, that's interesting. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was excellent evidence. We really appreciate your time. I don't think you took anything on notice, but if you need it to provide us more information, we're asking for it by the 15th of December.
Thank you, Senator.
So they have it. As I say, very significant evidence, and I do think we need to think differently about the way that small businesses are supported, and I do believe that a government-backed bank is the way to go, because without it, small business lending will continue to struggle. And just reflect on this, that a few years ago, 2/3 of lending was to business, 1/3 for houses and mortgages. That's been reversed. So basically, our major banks are predominantly big building societies, and their interest in providing services to small businesses continues to degrade. We need a different path. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.